that I needed to explore, and it kept rattling around in my mind, puzzling and confusing me, until I remembered something that happened to me as a very small child. My older sister suffered from an aggressive form of polio, kept her more or less in hospital for years. My mother was with her every day, which meant I had to be left somewhere. And that somewhere, more often than not, was with a neighbor down the street, an elderly woman whom I have always known as Graham Warney. I remember her mostly from the waist down, which is at 4 or 5 how you see adults. And from that vantage point, what I remember is a navy blue dress, punctuated by white dots or white flowers. She wore large black Oxford shoes, like the one the nuns used to wear. And I spent my days running around the house that she was trying to keep clean behind me. And she called me, quite accurately, her pest. And I may be telling you more about me than I care to remember when I say that when I recall her voice, those are the only words I can hear, her calling me her pest. Anyway, the very best part of the day was when she called me to the kitchen to sit at the kitchen table, which I remember covered with a vinyl red and white checkered tablecloth. And there I would sit on her lap, and she would feed me with these large hands, gnarled with age, a special treat of graham crackers and milk, which is why I called her Graham Warney. And her love for this lonely boy from a family stricken with illness, I feel even now. One day, my aunt, my mother's sister, a very kind woman, was babysitting me while my mother was at the hospital. And I had a boy's accident, and I cut my finger. And immediately I knew what to do. Wailing and screaming, holding my bleeding finger aloft for all to see, I paraded down the sidewalk to Graham's house. "Mark, come back," my aunt yelled from the front steps. "I can fix your finger." And as if to convince me, she held aloft a box of Mickey Mouse Band-Aids and bottle of mercurochrome. "No, it's okay," I called back. "Graham will fix me." And from the stricken look on my aunt's face, immediately I knew I had done wrong. I had hurt her feelings by choosing the neighbor over her. But I marched on to Graham's house because it was not curing I was after. It was healing I was after. And I knew Graham could heal me. Sisters and brothers, when we are wounded, physically, mentally, spiritually, it is healing we are after. Healing that comes from a profound sense that the other person is aware of our suffering and our pain. Even if they don't know exactly how we feel, they are not afraid of how we feel. And they are willing to stand by us as we battle not only illness, but the fears and losses that accompany illness. That is why the humanity of Jesus is God's way of standing with us in pain and illness, whether curing happens or not. That is why Jesus was not cured off the cross, so that in his suffering, he could stand by us in our suffering, and together we would be healed by the resurrection, the power of God's Holy Spirit. And that is why all of you in the healing professions, And all of you who are not professionals, but who stand with people in pain and suffering, are imitating the example of Christ, who came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Each action, each hour of service given in sympathy to those who suffer is an action of the loving Christ, whose willingness to be with us in suffering brought healing to a broken world. No, we may not be able to cure everyone, and there are so many we cannot cure but wish that we could. But as my wise friend said, we can nevertheless bring healing to everyone in the same way that Jesus brings healing even today, by standing with us in his humanity, willing to share our suffering. Amen.